It's time for our first vocabulary words of Unit 5. I'm starting a new page today, but if you're still continuing where you left off underneath radiation, that's totally fine. So we've got 3 words today, and the first word we're going to focus on is the word absorb. And you've probably heard the word absorb before, and we're going to be hearing a lot in the coming unit. So absorb. So absorb, the definition is the process or action. Absorb is the process or action of one thing. The process or action of one thing taking in. The process or action of one thing taking in or soaking up another. The process or action of one thing taking in or soaking up another. So for my detail, we're going to be really focusing on the word absorb in the atmosphere. So it turns out our atmosphere absorbs some solar radiation. So some of that radiation from the sun, it is going to get absorbed by our atmosphere. So our atmosphere is going to be able to take in or soak up radiation. So for my example, I'm going to draw of an object that we probably most usually think of when we think of the word absorb. We think about something like a sponge, right? A sponge absorbs water, it takes it in or soaks it up, and that acts very similar to our atmosphere. So I'm going to draw an example of a sponge. So I'm going to draw a sponge here. You might remember we also kind of did an example of a sponge for the word permeable, which meant having pores or openings. And being permeable definitely allows something to absorb things. So I'm going to put, water goes into here, and that's the word absorb. To take in or to soak up. And we're going to see that our atmosphere does that. We're also going to see our ocean does that it can absorb solar radiation. And our next word is kind of the opposite of that, and that's going to be the word reflection. We could also say reflect, but we're going to add the ION to the end of this word. So reflection is the throwing back. Reflection is the throwing back of, and there are some different things, it's the throwing back of light, heat, or sound. So there's a couple of different materials. So it's the throwing back of light, heat, or sound without a surface absorbing it. So reflection is the throwing back of light, heat, or sound without a surface absorbing it. So in my details box, I'm going to write here, atmosphere reflects. Atmosphere reflects some solar radiation. So the atmosphere does reflect some of that solar radiation. So there's a lot of examples of objects that do reflection, and probably the best one is a mirror, right? Oh, there I am. Hello. So a mirror is a really great example of reflection because the light bounces against the mirror and it goes directly back into the camera, and that is done without any of that light getting absorbed by the mirror, right? It gets reflected back without the surface absorbing it. So I'm going to draw here a picture of a mirror. And here is the beam of light. Light hits the mirror, and that is what we call reflection. I should also probably label that that's a mirror there. So a mirror is an excellent idea or an excellent example of something that reflects light. So reflection is light or heat or sound hitting a surface and being thrown back without the surface absorbing it. So our next word is going to deal with both of these two words. And it's something that some of you may have heard before, and it may be something brand new to you. So our last word is going to be a process that happens in our atmosphere. So the greenhouse effect is the process. The greenhouse effect is the process. It's the process by which greenhouse effect is the process by which the atmosphere absorbs and reflects. It absorbs and reflects outgoing infrared radiation. So it absorbs and reflects outgoing infrared radiation. And infrared radiation is something that we're going to be talking more about this week, so you'll kind of understand exactly what infrared is. So in the details box, I'm actually going to write two things here. So the first thing I'm going to write in the details is that this whole process keeps Earth warm. So this process is going to help to keep our planet warm. So that's one important part. And then the other part of this that's important is it is radiation that's leaving Earth. So it's radiation leaving Earth. And I want to make sure that's clear because I often have students who get very confused by this, but this isn't talking about radiation that's coming in from the sun. This is talking about radiation that's trying to leave our planet, but that leaving radiation is going to get absorbed and reflected by the atmosphere. Okay, so the greenhouse effect is happening after the sunlight has reached our planet and our surface. So I'm going to draw a little sketch of this, and the sketch we're going to do today is very, very simple. We're going to be doing a much more detailed sketch of the greenhouse effect on Thursday and Friday this week. So here's my simple sketch. First of all, I'm going to label, before I even draw it, that above our planet we have this thing called the atmosphere. And down here is the ground where my happy little stick figure person is. So just to give us some perspective, right, down here is the ground, up here is the atmosphere. And what happens with this greenhouse effect is we have this infrared radiation that goes and tries to leave, but then it gets reflected and bounced around in our atmosphere. So I'm going to label that that is infrared radiation. So infrared radiation that tries to leave our planet. Let me scoot this over a little more. That infrared radiation is going to get absorbed and reflected. And I'm kind of drawing my picture kind of similar to I did here, where some of it is going to get absorbed, some of it will get reflected, some of it will go straight out. And again, we're going to go into more detail with this process on Thursday and Friday this week. So our three words today all go together. Absorb or absorption and reflection are kind of opposites, and both of those things are happening in the greenhouse effect.